Ms. Ettinger, and we talked about some of the things that we created and started, like such as online forms for registration and enrollment, also for student contacts, and we're basically spending some time analyzing the results of these and tweaking some things that we thought would work and maybe aren't working so well. So we've made some updates to that. This last month, we recycled our electronics. There were almost 400 pieces of equipment that we recycled, including our old phone system, so 247 phones, 87 Chromebooks, and a lot of large TVs, some things that have been sitting around for a while collecting dust. Lastly, we had some issues with the panic buttons in the high school. We had 2 times it went off when nobody touched it. So we had Global come out here, and they did find some kind of error and fixed it, and we haven't had anything since then. Also, there was some issues with the baseball field security camera. Same vendor came out. They hired a new person that understands the system better, and he came out and said, we thought we might have to increase the speed of our internet, but really it was configuration. So we were able to fix that at no cost. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Komar.
Hi, everyone. So I know Dr. Keebler talked at the last meeting. I was at the Steels convention looking at some curriculum for new science standards for the last meeting, but he talked about the Sunday reading program that we introduced in upper elementary and in the middle school. So the point of that was really to bridge some of the stuff that we were doing in the elementary as far as some reading intervention that we were kind of lacking in the middle school. So I was very happy to get that in place in February. The plan will be to start the school year next year with that up and running, since we have teachers trained and we're good to go in that. So I'm really excited about that. Secondary Student of the Month and Staff of the Month. That's up for the month of April. It's up on the board. We already have our selections for May. Again, Student Council has done a great job. Every month they've been quicker as far as getting it up, right as the month is starting. So I've been very happy with their efforts and, the students working through that. In the area of transition, our next transition team meeting is April 18th. We've had a number of students do job shadows. We would just want to continue building that program. It looks like the job skills program that we were using in Burrell that we've had some students attend and work through will be closing for next school year, so that's kind of sad. But it also kind of set the framework for how we can work through, I think, in our own community and have some job programs for some of our students, working here, where we wouldn't have to provide transportation, and we can, use some community partners that we have here in Leechburg. So for some of our other programs, we have 1 student currently enrolled in the Renew. He is a senior working through that program. We've had 4 LEAPS referrals and 7 MTSS referrals currently. And then for special education, GIEPs, and 504s, we have 24 meetings that we've either held or will be held for the month. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I just want to thank you, because I know you've gotten a lot more on your plate lately with all our changes, and I just have heard good things.
Oh, I appreciate
So I
that.
just want to let you know that, you are appreciated, and thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Adam from Metz.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. I just want to give you some updates on things I have going on with the school. We have McClure out here last Friday to start surveying the roofs, the bathrooms, the boilers, and the windows. Start getting those projects moving. Hopefully, they can get back to us with some budget numbers so we can start making some decisions on these bigger projects. I also had Kurtz Brothers out here this morning to look at our cafeteria tables. I need one more quote. I have Lakeshore Learning coming out in May. Hopefully we can start pursuing some new tables for the kids. Also, Jesse Henry from Ironside Electrical, he finished the electrical up at the concession stand today. I really appreciate him getting that done as quick as he did. I'll be calling the inspector tomorrow morning to have him come out and check everything. And then also in The first week of June, we have the new dishwasher coming for the kitchen. Hopefully that'll be a smooth project. I'm a little worried about that one. I got to get under the floor in the kitchen next week to go over some electrical stuff. We should have all the tractors and everything ready to go to cut grass by tomorrow. We started cutting grass at the school yesterday. And then also the baseball field, we're going to try as hard as we can, as long as the weather holds off, to get up there next week and start cutting some grass. We also turned the water up at the football field. That's on. Everything's good up there. And then also just throw this out there. If anybody knows anybody, we are in dire need of some janitorial subs. So if you guys know anybody that'd be interested, I'd really appreciate just letting people know, because we could definitely use the help right now. So that's all I have. Yeah, no problem. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Business report, Mrs. Ettinger.
I'll go over the agenda first before I do my little update there. So just under budget and finance, some of the things that we have on here, our technology services agreement is done at the end of June. So we have an RFP on there that we'd like you to vote on so we can put it out at the next meeting. We received a LERTA application for a new build in Gilpin Township. The township did approve that LERTA, so you're the next step in that process. The official tax credit register is that volunteer service credit for the volunteer firefighters. So all those applications were actually due by April 1st. So these are all the people that got everything in and had all the pieces of information. They get a $200 credit. So we're just asking you to approve that. Great Point Resources has an agreement for our behavior specialist for next year, so we have that on there. We have a sole source justification form for one of our PCCD grants. So we came under budget in a couple of the items from the PCCD grant. So we wanted to use some of our security upgrades, like a new repeater for our radios. And in order to do that, you have to have 3 quotes because we're using, federal dollars. So this is just to say that we got that through Global, who did all of our other security upgrades. So we're able to, have this approved through that because we didn't have the 3 quotes. So we're able to do this sole source justification form. So we're just asking you to approve that. The IU-IDEA agreement, which we do every year. We're gonna ask to table the copier contract, or to remove it, I guess, because this is just discussion. It's not on here for voting. So you guys approved a RFP for new copiers at the February meeting, I believe. We put that RFP out. It was out. We got all those responses back. So we had a couple hiccups. The printer management wasn't in there. So we had to go back to them, and we were asking for, what just happened? We were asking for some updated information from them in regard, because we still do have printers in some of our offices. So we're getting rid of a lot of printers, but some of us still need our desktop printers. So we went back to them to see what they were going to charge each person who responded. We had 4 responses to our RFP, what each person was actually going to charge us for that so that we could get more information. So I had a table attached in board docs to what we thought we had. And then this morning, one of our vendors, I guess this is kind of a question to you guys. One of our vendors came back to us this morning and said that they had originally sent a proposal in. They told us this morning that it was the wrong proposal. So they sent the right proposal, and it actually was the cheapest. So that kind of derailed everything that we were going to present tonight, our recommendation. Unfortunately, I was not in the office today. I was only in the office this morning. I had to leave for an emergency. And so I'm asking that we just remove it. And so we can do our, our due diligence and looking at everything and running these numbers again and trying to determine if that's actually the right, just Monday, I received an email from next year. Our CD is going to mature tomorrow, and they offered us a 5.11 APY, which is actually higher than the one that they gave us previously. So I'm asking that we actually approve that tonight because it matures tomorrow. And then the Westmoreland County Children's Bureau, it's just a transportation agreement from our homeless liaison, Ms. Fisher. We approved that same exact agreement last year. So there's 2 agreements on there, one's an MOU and one's for the transportation plan. So I was asked at the last meeting to present on the A2 method that we had talked about. So I'm going to give it my best shot. So let me just try to find it, and I
Andrew.
apologize because I thought I had it in here.
Letting her do this. It's gonna be great. But if you can go back and watch it.
Let me just preface this by saying I talked to probably 3 or 4 people about the method A2, and under method A2, there is actually 3 options. There's 1, 2, or 3 that you actually decide as a board which of those options under that method you actually want to do. Okay, so how this works is that I talked to Ben Hamp from PDE. He's the controller, and he gave me as much information as possible. And then I reached out to a business manager at a school that just changed this method like a year and a half ago to try to get some information from him. He basically told me that good luck, that this is a very hard method to explain, and nobody uses this, so people just don't know about it. But what it does, and I'll just step over here, what it does is, in this method, here's your A21, A22, and A23. So when you see what I'm talking about, those 3 columns over there, basically what this does is you equalize the assessed values. So you take the assessed values. We have Gilpin, Leechburg, and West Leechburg, and these are the current market values and assessed values current, okay? And then what happens is we have to do this as a district every year if you switch to this method. You have to run this calculation to figure out and equalize the assessed values in each of the counties. And then it goes by this minimum ratio at the bottom here, this 17.83%, which is actually West Leechburg. And that's where it gets down below here, your millages. So as you can see, the millage on A21 would be 37.5637 across the board, 37.5858, and then A23 would go to 19.2498. Now, the thing that's happened though is that your assessed value, so what we did was we did a calculation based on an assessed value of a home for $100,000. In these methods, that assessed value would be $560,000. So all you've done is take your assessed value and increase it, and that lowers the millage. So this A2 method, you have to get that minimum ratio every year, and it's based off of that minimum ratio. So every year we would have to do this calculation, and it would be based off that ratio. So the problem is if that ratio increases, you're okay. But if it decreases, then that's where you start to run into some problems. And that's what happened at the school that I talked to that just implemented this method a couple years ago. They are now literally just in a year and a half having a problem already because their minimum ratio percentage is decreasing. So what that does is he told me that first of all, you no longer have any control over your assessed values. So like everybody's assessed values usually stay the same unless you have done work or something like that, or you appeal, then your assessed value changes. It's your millage that's changing and, controlling you're now every year, your assessed value is going to be something different. So, if you sell a house, so we basically looked at all these numbers, and what he said was he actually looked at the numbers with me because he's actually doing this method. So he said, the thing is what you're doing is, he said, you're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. So what you've done is you've just shifted all of the Westmoreland, West Leechburg taxes into the Armstrong County side. And he said, honestly, if anybody's getting a raw deal, it's actually Leechburg Borough. Because what's happening is, if you look at these percentages up top, this is actually the percentages of what they're paying. So Leechburg's actually at 48%. On a $49 million market value, their share is $23 million. West Leechburg has a $59 million, and their share is only $10 million. So he said, if anybody should be upset, he was thinking it would be Leechburg Borough and not anybody else. But what happens is, if you look, the assessed value, this is where the assessed values go up, and it just increases the assessed values to a level that, and you have no control over that. And then the county, we have to give the county all those assessed value numbers. So that's a whole nother conversation with whether our counties can even handle that, basically, for tax bill printing, because we have to now give them the assessed value numbers to print on the tax bills and all of that stuff. So this is, I was writing some notes so that I wouldn't forget to say anything. So this is per Ben Hamp from PDE. He's, his words, it equalizes the assessed values and uses the step ratio to determine the equalized assessed values. And then, like I said, it takes the lowest percentage for all municipalities, because all you're doing in this A2 method is equalizing it across the board for all 3 municipalities. Down below, it actually, the A21 method and the A22 method actually do not decrease West Leechburg's tax burden. So currently they're at 1.6 million, 7.3. They actually go up using this method, up even more using that method. So it's only the 823 method, and that's the one that hardly anybody uses, they told me. So, and that method is where, kind of like the one that I showed you previously, where the tax burden basically goes in half, and it shifts it to the other counties. So you're basically just putting that tax burden on all of the other, on Leechburg and Gilpin Township. He did look at our numbers, like I said, and he said, a house in West Leechburg, if you sell a house in West Leechburg, you're going to get more money than a house that's being sold in Leechburg. So that's basically how this all, works out. From the year 21-22 to 22-23, our market value, he said we would actually be in this situation, the same situation they're in, just by him looking from last year, from 21-22 to 22-23. He said our percentage would have went down, and he said we would be in the same boat as them. He said what happens is that your assessed values kind of stay the same, but your tax bills go up. And he said that's a very hard thing to try to explain to taxpayers, why their assessed values basically stayed the same, but their millages went up, and it's based on that minimum ratio number. So if that goes down or decreases, everybody's taxes raise. Their taxes across the board were raising 13% in every single one of their counties, just without them asking for any additional local tax revenue, just by them running this calculation, and their ratio decreased, all their taxes went up 13% in every one of their counties. So they had to really started scrambling, because they realized that this was not, working, that this is where, so again, you don't know that your percentage is always going to go up. If it, Mr. Hamps told me that if it keeps going up, you're good, but you don't know that. And they're a perfect example, because theirs did not. It went down, it decreased. So they're in that, they're not in a good place right now. So, they're trying to explain this. So like I said, I'll try to answer any questions. I'm not sure that I have the answers, but I'll do the best that I can.
I know I asked you to do this last time, so I want to say thank you for that, because I know it's a lot of work, a lot of information, a lot of talking to people, and a lot of just sitting there crunching some numbers. I don't really have any questions, but I guess the one thing that's coming to my mind is, so obviously we heard a lot of, it's just going to go up, it's going to go up, it's across equalized. Is there anything like good about this that would be like beneficial to do it this way versus A1 that you can think of, that you read, that maybe the guy that you talked to mentioned to you?
No one said anything like, yeah, go for that, like that's your solution. No, that was not portrayed to me at all from any of them, actually. Dr. Strom said his recommendation was to hold off because, like, and I've stated this previously, once you change, it's really hard to change back. So and obviously this formula is way more convoluted than the one that we currently use. So, to try to switch back then, and again, I think, explaining just what I said, just calculating at $100,000 assessed value and having someone get a tax bill and it says $560,000, I think explaining that in itself is going to be a hard thing to do, because that's basically what's going to happen. It just equalizes the assessed values in every one of our counties. So you're not really paying the tax on your home's assessed value. Essentially, you're paying a tax on an assessed value that's equalized across all 3 counties.
And is that sort of inflated assessed value closer to a true market value, or does it really just become totally disproportionate?
I really don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Because I'm not, I'm working through trying to understand it, and I've never seen it before. And so I learned a lot just plugging these numbers in and running this calculation, I think. But just, talking to other people, it was very informative in what they're running into right now. And,
What is the district that you spoke with?
it's Crawford County.
They're in Crawford County?
I think so.
Crawford Central, I believe.
Crawford Central.
It's up to you.
And
They just called it Crawford. He just said Crawford County. I didn't.
and they are using A23.
They are. They're using A23. They're using that exact.
But they don't like it.
The poor business manager that's up there was not there when they implemented this. He's brand new and he is struggling. He told me. So that's all I can say. I've never talked to him before, but he was very nice enough to call me, and
Yeah.
he helped me go through all these numbers, and he kind of looked at our numbers, like I said, to help me better understand with our own numbers. And like I said, just looking at from 21 to 22 to 22, 23, our market value numbers went up. So he said that would probably keep our assessed values about the same, but everybody's taxes would go up because that would probably decrease that percentage. And he said, you can't, it's really hard to explain that because it's all now based on that percentage. It's not, you basically have no control over your assessed values if you use this method.
Are you able to email this to us?
Sure.
So that
Oh,
we
yeah.
can see that? Because I can't see it from here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, but I'm following you. And do you want to keep looking at this? Or I just feel bad there's nobody here tonight or not as many people as normal.
I mean, that's a board decision. If you guys are going in that route, I have no,
Okay.
yes.
How hard was it to find somebody that even used that?
Well, there's only 5 districts in the state that use it. And
So that's how popular it is then.
these guys just
I think that tells us
switched, so they're more they wanted me to talk to him because he had just switched and the problems that he's having, and it's not just about switching and then everything writes itself basically. Because he said, you really need to talk to Austin. He's running into trouble now after only a year and a half because now his, so I feel like this is, from what, just listening to people, it's just a very volatile because you don't know from year to year, as well as we don't know from year to year using the current method that we have as well. But I feel like we have a little more control over the one that we currently use than what we would have with this. Because like I said, the assessed values are going to change then every single year. We're going to run this calculation. It's going to equalize an assessed value. Everybody's going to get a different assessed value every single year and a different millage every single year based on this minimum ratio.
And back to A1, just the fundamental calculation, can you just describe that in contrast to this?
So that is just based on your home's assessed value and the millage of that county. So, right now you get your tax bill, it has your assessed value on there. It's divided by 1,000 times your millage, that is your tax bill. This is something completely different. So this takes the millage, the assessed values. Well, it gets a percentage. I'm sorry, it's a split screen, so it's hard to, so at the top, it takes the SEB market value, the SEB assessed value, and it comes up with a ratio, which is that middle column that you see there. And then in this instance, in this method, you use the lowest ratio, which obviously right now is West Lynchburg. So everybody would use that 17.830502%. And that's what it calculates out over to the side. So the SEB rate, like using that, you're at 79 million in Gilpin as opposed to 40 million. So all you've done is, equalized, you've pushed some assessed value over here. You've equalized it in all 3 municipalities. So, and then you times, of course you get a lower millage, but as you can see down below, it still didn't, it actually raised based on that. It actually raised this even higher than what they're currently, this is the actual method 81 that we use right now. So this is that tax levy there. So they're at 1.673, whereas if we went with A121 or A22, they're actually going to be higher. Their tax levy is actually higher.
I just feel that given everything that you've researched and found out, plus the fact that it has never been utilized before by former business managers or boards, that says something right there too, that it's not the best option. It never has been. And from just predictions from what you've said, it's not going to be with how many times it could change. So I just feel that we should just rule it out and not go through any more about it.
Again, I just want to say thank you for the information because, this is still an option, right? This is always on the table. This is always something you can come back to. So to have more information, something that we didn't really understand at all last year compared to slightly understanding it more this year, any information is good because it will always help you make a better decision for that year or the following years to come. So I want to say thank you again. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Ettinger. I think the key piece to this is looking as we move forward. So now you have this data. At that point next year, we could look at the same thing to see, had we went this route, what would happen with that, so that you have that data, so you're not jumping into something saying, here we go down the water slide, let's see where we end up at.
And just one last, just to verify, the numbers that you gave us before, looking at what A2 would be, it was something like, tell me if I'm right, it was like 1137. It would decrease the taxes on a median home in West Leechburg, and they would go up 350 in
So
Gilpin and
those
Leechburg.
numbers were not accurate.
Okay.
That was just to show you that, because we hadn't calculated our assessed values yet. So
Okay.
you have to plug in. So what I used was the current assessed values, just to show you how it worked, how it made the millage equalize. So, but the numbers were not right. It was just to show you how that method actually works. And then as we dove into this, you have an option of 1, 2, or 3 under that method. So PDE plugs those numbers in. Like when I go in, I only have one option, A2. So they plug in these numbers behind the scenes, like I said, and we would have to calculate as a district every year these new assessed values and plug those in every year. So it was just showing you what happens to the millage if you do another.
So
method.
those numbers, the 1137 and 1137 going down in West Leechburg and
It was like
352
Yeah.
going up in
Yeah, so
Leechburg
it was-
and Gilpin. It was something like that.
Right.
Those are inaccurate for the record.
Right. They're not.
Okay,
Those
because
are just.
I think there was a lot of people coming to those first couple meetings and looking
Right.
at those numbers, and they may still be under the understanding that that's what it was. And I just wish that there was more people from West Leechburg here so that, do you even have a rough idea what it would be on a median home?
I'd have to do the calculation, because again, you're now going to equalize it for every single homeowner using this.
Yeah.
So every single homeowner in our district would have a completely different assessed value than what they currently see now.
So you wouldn't be able to calculate a median for this method to give them something for comparison?
I'm sure we could.
But it would
we'd
be a
have
bunch
to-
of,
Right, we'd have to calculate this, we'd have to get these actual numbers first, which is what this looks like right now, based on, this is updated with our current assessed values and step values from, I use the most updated numbers, so I feel like these numbers are good. So we could do it, but we have to calculate this first, and then actually kind of get whatever that median is, and try to figure it out.
okay.
But
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
LEA President Report, Mrs. Mondale.
Good evening and happy April. Kindergarten is going to the zoo and Pittsburgh Aquarium tomorrow. Hopefully it does not rain, but looks like it may be more of a Noah's Ark experiment than previously planned. The children will get to attend a program at the zoo's education classroom and be introduced to different types of animals and get up close and personal with a lot of them, and the parent chaperones will get to experience that as well. The kindergarten students are also starting to prepare for kindergarten graduation. So they'll combine every day starting next week and learn 3 songs and the choreography, and their ceremony is on the stage in the auditorium on Friday, May 24th. Second graders are learning about some wild weather, which is appropriate for recent events. Each student is going to create a Google slide to show what they've learned about tornadoes. And the assignment's not only demonstrating what they've learned from their reading, but also challenging them to use their technology and computer skills that they've learned from other assignments and from Mr. Duranchek's classes as well. The 7th grade science students are creating old-time Western-style wanted posters about various symbiotic relationships. The chemistry students are working on building and then launching tissue paper hot air balloons to demonstrate Charles's law. My honors English 12 students are starting their 30-minute individual research project presentations this month. Mr. Paulus can attest to as a survivor. They have to present on a recent advancement in science and technology. Some of the topics this year include virtual reality, white hydrogen as an alternative energy source, particle accelerators, a new drug to treat ALS, electronic bandages, and an internal sleep apnea machine. Dr. Linkus is taking some gifted and Biology 2 students to Penn State New Kensington for a student research expo, where they'll review research projects that the Penn State New Kensington students have done, and they'll actually get to sit down in a real college lecture to see how that works. As you can kind of see around the room, last Friday, the Creation Cafe hosted a total eclipse party with laser lights and black lights and space-themed snacks, including a moonbeam and sunshine lemonade. That was delicious. The marching band unveiled their new show for the 2024 season. It is Changes in Attitudes, and it is a tribute to Jimmy Buffett. And they're very excited and think that the show will be fun for both the band and us in the stands as well. Leadership auditions for the 2024 marching band are scheduled for May 6th. And just to mark your calendars, the intermediate, middle, and high school band concerts will be Thursday, April 25th. The intermediate band performs at 6, and the middle school and high school bands start at 7. And as Mr. Rogers said, we are in full swing of testing season and also preparing for high school graduation. Any questions for me? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion is needed to approve the meeting minutes for the month of March 2024 as submitted.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Personnel, Dr. Keeler, do you want to do these?
For personnel, we have item 7.1 is FMLA leave request for employee 71, which will be a retroactive approval. Item 7.2 is FMLA intermittent leave request for employee 801. Item 7.3 is a 6 through 12 principal curriculum director. Item 7.4 is a food service substitute. Any questions on any of the personnel items? For budget and finance, item 8.1, we have the RFP for technology services. 8.2 is the LERTA application for Nikki. 8.3 is the 2024 official tax credit register. 8.4 is the grade point resource agreement for a behavior specialist. Item 8.5 is the sole source justification form for the PCCD grant 38260. Item 8.6 is the Aaron IU 28 IDEA agreement. We are going to ask to remove item 8.7, the copier contract. Item 8.8 is next tier bank CD reinvestment. Item 8.9 is the Westmoreland County Children's Bureau MOU for transportation agreement. Item 8.10 is the Westmoreland County Children's Bureau Transportation Plan. And item 8.11 is the financial reports. Any questions on any of those items?
Yeah, I have a question to Mrs. Ettinger for the reinvestment. We invested that, was that a 12-year or 12-month CD, 9-month CD? What did we originally put in, and then how much did we make off that? And then what are we reinvesting what we made to make even more?
Yes, so we put in 450,000. I think we're at a little over 5,000 in interest. So they're going to reinvest the whole amount.
Okay, thank you.
Item 9, use of facility. The use of facility requests. We have the junior high student council middle school dance on 5/17/24, and we have a retro approval for Kiscaria Soccer League football field 4/6/24. I'm going to ask if we can add item. It was reached out. Brad Walker, the president of Castle, reached out to me today and asked if there would be a problem. He did submit another facility use form for this Saturday with all the rain going on to use the football field again for the youth soccer program on there. So if we can add that, if that would be okay. And I talked with him. I'm going to get with him here next week and try to do some type of an agreement for the spring that if the field's available, that the school's not using it on there, that we'd be okay using it, that they have everything. It'd be a little trickier in the fall with football season and soccer going on, but I think the spring it's on there. And he did want me to personally thank everybody for approving that last week through my email on there. They got the first week in and they're not backed up. I know from being on the board at Castle years ago on there, it's a nightmare trying to reschedule those events on weekends with that.
I have a question on that. If we are going to allow them to use the field again, would it be possible to have the restrooms unlocked?
The water's on. There was no water last week, and we let him know. Yes. He sent an email out to all the coaches. No, we had one parent that was really upset up there that came up, but we knew that. Yeah, we knew about it going in, and there was no other option. And he actually was going to get porta johns if we were allowed to use it if we didn't have it, but maintenance was able to get them opened up this week. It was just last minute. He had emailed me or called me Thursday night at like 10 o'clock last week to say, hey, can we get this through? That's why we put it through. So they were very appreciative to have it without them, but they would have facility restroom use this week.
Thank you to maintenance. Too,
yes,
then.
they did a great job with that.
Okay.
Any questions on any of those items? Item 10, field trip requests. 10.1, we have a bunch of them on here. The film festival competition, Robert Morris University on 4/18/24. Armstrong, Indiana County Career and Job Fair, Elderton High School, 4/12/24. Spanish Club, Gateway Clipper Cultural Dinner Cruise, 5/15/24. Soft Skills Challenge in Indiana on 4/15/24. IEP Reward Incentive Zone 28 on 5/10/24. Bio 2, Carnegie Museum of Natural History on 5/16/24. And Middle School Students Camp Lucy Mental Health Conference, Camp Guyasuda on 5/8/24. Any questions on any of the field trip requests?
I don't have a question on a field trip. Am I allowed to backtrack to the field again?
Yes,
So does that involve paying overtime to maintenance?
they didn't. We'd have to look at that with the thing. And they actually, as I have mentioned before, they had a whole cleanup crew as part of Castle who cleaned everything up with it. Mr. Durancheck got a call from Coach Walters who wanted to commend Castle for their cleanup up there with it. He actually sent me a text, and then he did call Brad and thank him for that. So I think that would be a conversation we could have. They were trying to consume it. They took all the garbage they had with them on there. Now, it may be different when we get into the restrooms on there, but I'll look into that, and I'll make sure we have an agreement to whatever that would look like moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Fundraising request 11.1, we have junior high student council middle school dance on 5/17/24 and Science Club wildflowers on May 2024. Any questions on any of that? And for my update, I spent the morning up at the IU for our superintendent's conference, and we were joined today by PA Secretary of Ed, Dr. Moomin, as well as the Deputy Secretary of Ed, Dr. Rowe. We went over a bunch of topics. Each superintendent got to talk with what was going on. We talked budget. We talked about facility upgrades. It was one of the big pushes that we discussed. They just released these grants, but the grants that have been released, the one that we did that's still pending for the door handles, a lot of the ones that are competitive, we were talking with both of them that certain schools, and particularly ours being a 100-year-old building that we've upgraded throughout the years on there, we felt that it shouldn't be competitive. We brought up some other districts who are putting $134 million schools in that it's not an option here. So how do they make that more competitive and fair for our students in our district with that? So they did listen with that. I know there was a lot of pieces going through. They were taking a lot of notes with it. So we're hopeful that as we continue to push, as superintendents pass going through their PSBA, everybody going to the state, that they will mark some of those things down and continue to work with that. I did have a conversation with Dr. Rowe regarding STEB. And I'll be honest, I don't know that they had a ton of detail of even understanding what STEB was doing. So I think that opened the door with that. Mr. Magnus jumped in after the fact that we were going through that part. So I plan to follow up with her tomorrow, getting her some information. And basically what I requested that they go to the governor with is a checkoff box, just like we have on federal programs. So we have federal programs, certain ones like Title II. If you get under $50,000, you check the box, it's done. You have stipulations for how you use it, but it's not required that you do certain things. There's other set-asides you have to use if it's over that number. I asked them if they could simply put a checkbox, hey, we don't want to use STEB, we want to leave our taxes alone. Had we had that option this year, if we wouldn't have had a drop in Armstrong, we wouldn't have had to increase Westmoreland, we're good. If we needed it, we wouldn't then check that. We would use STEB or however else we would do that. It wouldn't impact any of the other parts, just giving a school choice on what we were doing. They were open to it, so I plan to have that conversation with them and then follow up with Renee at the STEB office to make sure they're in communication as well. There is some traction right now with it, but we did have the conversation with them. The political push from our senators, that's the uphill battle that we face every day, that one's not willing to give in for the other on that, on long other items. So we'll continue that fight as we go. There's some interesting things coming out from the state. And I know the 900 hours for elementary, 990 for high school, they've been pushing this through. We are applying for Act 80 days for the upcoming school year that we put into our calendar, but moving forward, the state is trying to eliminate them. They're also going to eliminate FID days in the future. They're not saying you can't use them, but we're not going to be required to report them with that. And basically what they're saying is schools will have the ability to change the modality if needed. So if we need to teach online for a day, we can teach online. I'm fearful because they make this big promise. I'm guessing we're going to have 10,000 papers to fill out after the fact. So we're going to continue till we have details on that. We'll continue with our FID days that are allowed. We'll continue with our Act 80 days, but that's where they're going with this. And the push really is going on, and there's a lot of factors that you look at on here, but what they're trying to do, some other states are cutting down to 4 school days a week. Other sorts of good. So I think they're trying to open up those doors where it's going. But obviously we're under other pieces that we have school days of what we have in our contract on there. So I think there's a lot of pieces to talk about on there. They don't have the details for us now. They're just trying to lay the groundwork out of that's where the state's working to. So those are a couple of the other pieces. Some changes coming for Act 45, and Act 45 would be for administrators to get their continued learning. Prior to, it had to be a 25-hour course at one time. So when you have pill courses, and you can ask Mr. Komar, you're stuck in an office for 2 straight days. They give you the days. They're counting whether you're on the computer looking at them. It used to be you had to go off-site to meet with them, and then there was some coursework to do outside. They're going to cut that down to 5 hours, so it could be 5-hour increments, and then they're going to open it up that you can pick and choose what fits your schedule. If day 1 works in March and day 2 works in September, they'll allow you to mix and match them with that. So it's an upside for administrators, trying to keep us from having to go outside the building to keep up with our hours that we're going with that. Another new push that's coming out this year is called the Keystone Scholars. And back in 2019, the state put a budget piece in that every kid born from 2019 forward would have $100 to put into a 529 plan. Nobody's claiming the money. So they budgeted this money, it's sitting there. Now they're pushing these Keystone Scholars. They want to get it out through kindergarten registration. So the upcoming kindergartners are the 2019 birth year kids. They're going to try working with the schools to get this money then assigned to kids. So they have to start. And really the plan of it was to have some financial literacy induction for parents of, hey, if you start putting this little bit away each month for your kids into this 529 to pay for college in the future. The discussion we had is now they'll get the money in there and it'll go unclaimed if they're not following up with it. But that was the push that we'll have coming through. On the positive side, they're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act that is in Congress right now. There's $200 million for schools that's going to be put towards HVAC, water systems, and new technologies. And I know part of our priorities was the HVAC stuff that we were looking at here. So as those details come out, Dr. Moomin said they are currently just looking at how they're going to prioritize that, what that will look like. It's going to come out in grant money with that, but that will be available as well to help out. Last week we had our strategic planning meeting. We have the surveys in. I have the pieces from online as well as the papers that came in. In my update to the board on Friday, I will give a summary with that documentation for everybody to review through that. We will use that data now to put together our strategic plan, and then we will break that off into our academic piece to put our comprehensive plan back together and really look at how we're driving the district over the next 4 years. Last month, at the end of March, federal programs were due. I had everything submitted. It was quite more taxing than it was done the last time we had a monitoring was 2018. They came on site, they looked through your policies and that everything needed they are uploaded into it. So everything's in. When I get that report back, if anything needs fixed, we'll fix it. If not, I'll be able to report once we get that back. Don't know how long it'll be. I talked with, it was a Dr. Schnell, I believe, that is doing it who's a retired, I'm not sure where she was at, or I know she worked up at the college, but they come through and review all the documentation for that. So I'll update you as I hear back from that. Last week at our in-service, the district-wide, we did a trauma-informed training. It was a 2-hour training for our staff with that. That'll be part of our requirement that's coming in for the state for the separate pieces that were in there. So we'll continue to update that as we go through. I think we'll have to do one more piece, but I talked with them today that we can count a second part by doing a reflection on that. So I'll keep up to date. I'll work with the administrative team so that we have that. At the elementary, we're also preparing for PSSAs. The week of March 23rd will be ELA. The following week will be science and math. We have a little bit of a conflict for 5th grade. We're going to make sure that we get math in Monday and Tuesday and have makeups done. They're going on their field trip on Thursday. We chose that date because they got a grant to pay for busing down to Flight 93 Memorial. So we'll make sure those are done. If any kids miss it and are not done, we have an in-service on the 3rd. I can pull them in, do makeups on the 3rd, or the following week. It'll get submitted after they're done. The high school did the boot camp training, getting their material ready for that. At the elementary, we worked on the social weekly. It was that online magazine that we purchased this year for social studies. It's current events. I think it's really user-friendly for our teachers, and it's getting that experience and getting them the content that's wider than what was in a book that they were using before. They now have a new science weekly and a science reader that we're piloting right now for the next couple of months. That is part of our cycle that we're looking at for next year. I'll update that as we move forward. At the elementary, our science runs out for Science Fusion. We may pilot the whole way through next year, not trying to rush it to make sure with the new still standards coming out. But this new Science Weekly is aligned to the Steel standards with that. So I think it's a great starting point for us. I want to congratulate our PBIS team at the elementary. They've done a great job doing the blue box, making sure that everybody's safe, kind, and responsible. Mariah Shields from the IU was here visiting. She was interviewing teachers, interviewing students to make sure it was done with fidelity. We passed that piece in November. We will send a team out to Hershey for the MTSS PBIS conference out there where they'll be recognized for getting tier 1 PBIS in. So it's been a great job. The teachers have really done a great job. They're meeting down there in the morning and taking ownership of it. So I can't say more about that. The field trips are going on, as was mentioned before. Kindergarten registration, we had 28 kids registered. We had 3 that didn't show up. We'll watch that. That'll be another number that we will monitor moving forward, looking at how many classes of kindergarten we will need. April 25th, there is the Spring Intermediate Band Concert at 6 p.m. And May 15th through the 17th is the Elementary Science Olympiad. I want to thank Ms. Kalani and Mrs. Bonneke they've been working together. They're planning 3 days of a Science Olympiad where kids will compete on teams. They'll get to go do activities. And then there's a award presentation after that. When it comes up, I would definitely welcome any board member who'd like to stop by and see the award assembly. But they've been doing a nice job on that as well. Any questions on anything I went through? Thank you.
Go ahead.
We have the 13 is board-related issues. 13.1 is the bus schedule changes. 13.2 is bus bus substitute updated list. 13.3 is the 24-25 PSBA membership. 13.4 committee meeting schedule. 13.5 is the LASD hiring process. Any questions on those?
What's the committee meeting schedule?
It's not on there yet. I will update it on there for the next month on there. What we had talked about. Yes, the hiring process is just for discussion. I know that this started months ago with that. I attached in the executive piece on there the policies that Dr. Nix had found. I talked with Mr. Paulus on there. We looked at Seneca Valley or Quaker Valley, who Dr. Longo, who was part of the, who was my chair of my dissertation with that, but they had to hire the best, which I included that. And then instead of, it wasn't a nepotism policy, it was more of a hiring a family member. And it basically just set on, hey, we don't want to limit that if your family member is the best candidate for the position, but it was just talking in wording of you wouldn't be a part of the committee for the hiring or you wouldn't have a vote on that part of it, which is keeping it fair across the board. You don't want to limit it on there. So put that on there for review. If anybody has any questions, just want everybody to review it. We can start coming up, make our own policy, whatever, however we want to do that. And then we can get it on there so we can have a first reading of it and a second reading with that.
Thank you.
For action items, we need a motion to hire Dr. Tyler Vargo to the position of 6 to 12 principal and curriculum director at an annual salary of $118,000 pursuant to the terms and conditions as defined in the Act 93 agreement and pending successful completion of all required paperwork, clearances, and testing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations to Dr. Vargo. Motion is needed to approve the reinvestment of $450,000 to a next tier bank 6-month CD at an interest rate of 5%, APY of 5.11% as submitted.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. A motion is needed to approve the STEB consulting agreement with Mr. Brad Walker per the attached consulting agreement. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And non-agenda items, do we have any? Okay. Our next regular board meeting will be April 24th, 2024 in the high school library at 7 p.m. We need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion, meeting adjourned at 8:26 p.m.
And the board is going back into executive session